Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed and wrestled all over the U.S. and Canada. I'm pleased to welcome the one, the only Sinn Bodhi to Wrestling with Heart. Welcome.
Hey, buddy, how are you doing? This is my sidekick, Champy. He's
Hi,
along for the
Champy.
ride. He's a good boy. He was
Yes.
I think he's our latest rescue. Yeah.
That's
So I'm here.
awesome.
With me and my wife on our funny farm here on the edge of Death Valley, about an hour out of Vegas. We have all sorts of silly critters.
That's so
Oh, what?
amazing.
My little blind poodle is sitting down in the little cabana next to me off the camera, and he's
Aw.
growling at something. He didn't like something. He's my little gangster. He's a funny little sweet little poodle.
That's so,
Little
that's
kind of
so,
poodle terrier thing. He's just a little white fluffy little something or another. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he's like
aw.
those little robot vacuums that kind of bumps into the walls and stuff. He just runs around, just bumps into stuff. He's
Mm-hmm.
very sweet. He's super sweet, super smart.
Aw. That's
He's
so
cute,
nice.
almost as adorable as I am.
Well, let's talk about your childhood. Where are you from?
I was born in Toronto, Canada, part of Toronto called Etobicoke. I was raised in Orangeville, Ontario, Canada, about an hour north of Toronto. Um, I grew up with a couple other wrestlers. You may or may not have heard of them, Edge and Christian. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and in that same town, there was a lot of great wrestlers that came up. Like Angelina Love is from there, and she was kind of like my little sister, coming up. Like I helped train her a little bit. She rode with me quite a bit, but she's basically like my little sister. So there you go.
Yes, I had the pleasure of interviewing her on the show, as well as her husband, Merton. Good
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Like the
yeah,
boy's a good dude. He's a good dude.
yes. Lots of people came from Canada in the wrestling business, talking about, Edge and Christian, Angelina Love, Bret Hart, of course, Lance
Oh yeah,
Storm.
oh yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. There's something in the snow, I guess. Something in the snow, eh? Sound good.
So many people from Canada, have made it big in the wrestling business. And
I actually trained with my basics coach was Ron Hutchinson at Sully's Gym, same place as Edge and Christian, and I actually trained with Trish Stratus and Gail Kim. They were um, they had the biggest bizzles out of everybody in the platoon that we were training in. Like there was about 15 of us to start, and Ron just started like thinning down the herd. And yeah, Trish and Gail, they were in the snow. We would say they're the goers. They're the ones that are ready to get down. And they took everything that Ron threw at them, and look what they did. Look what they made of themselves. History is written.
that's
And
right.
yeah, they were two hard hitting, awesome ladies. They are still awesome. But there you go.
You really in this industry, you really have to sacrifice so much and just take so many risks and tough it out as much as possible because it's a grind. I mean, you all
Sure,
really like have to put in the work to
sure.
to make it, to that top level. What was it about wrestling that just made you go, man, I want to do this for a living?
I was just this shy little introverted, scared kid that just grew up a little ranch house outside of Orangeville, and so I didn't get to kind of play every day with the kids after school or whatever. Like, because I was so far out of town, I had to take a bus and get a note and do this and do that and get a drive and get picked up with my mom after, or work and this and that. And this it was always such a chore. So I kind of hung out with friends sometimes like on the weekends, but really like throughout the week it was just me, myself, and I. So and I have a little brother, but he's 6 years younger than me. So for the longest time, in those kind of years where I was forming the things that I would be intrigued by. Like I was kind of a solo act. So, and I was always around my dogs and cats. We had horses too, but I was kind of like, I liked them just fine, but I was kind of a dog and a cat guy. And so I would just be nuzzled on the couch with my dog or my cat or so or both and watching wrestling or reading comic books or drawing comic books. So it was all sort of superheroes and supervillains. And, some of them were on the pages of a comic book and some of them were jumping around in a wrestling ring. And I was just thoroughly enamored with that, with
Yeah.
the costumes and the muscles and the capes and the good guys and the bad guys and the evil and the heroes and all that stuff. And it just was fodder for my imagination.
Yeah, I mean you're getting creative and at such a young age it's always good to explore that, creativity. Of course as it builds, later on in life, you get to do so many different things and many different outlets. But wrestling is just such an amazing escape, to get away
Sure.
from, the everyday problems that we face. Your beginnings in the business, you'd mentioned, Ron Hutchinson earlier. He was one of your trainers along with Rob Fuego. Getting into the business, it's very intense, learning how to wrestle, learning the, certain moves and holds. What was your experience like learning how to wrestle?
So, excuse me. I had grown up as, again, I was so shy, but my dad was like a ranked tournament fighter, a karate tournament guy. And my mom, but they were both like multiple different like uh, level black belts. My mom had like a karate dojo. My dad was like a traveling champion. So I already had like an extensive martial arts background. So like being kind of like my dad's kid, I'm running just like how Dominic Mysterio was running around probably backstage at WWE when he was just a little itty bitty little kid. So I was doing that at karate tournaments, like where like guys like Chuck Norris or Johnny Terrio or Benny the Jet or all these different, I mean, like Superfoot Wallace, Bill Wallace, all these guys, all these awesome world renowned Wally Slokey with these world renowned um, martial artists. And so like I kind of like I never collegiate wrestled, but I got multiple different styles of martial arts under my belt, pardon the pun, and all that stuff. So like I just and within martial arts, like within the truest sense of mixed martial arts, different martial arts plus being a circus strongman, being a pro wrestler. So that just brought a lot of like shoot stuff to the table, and then being like that sort of superhero nerd and having being that kid with imagination. When you use your imagination, you mix good guys and bad guys and capes and spandex with like shoot fighting and all that stuff. I think then you get a pretty authentic pro wrestler. And
Yeah.
here we are. Ta-da! Here I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's preparing you for the physicality. You're
Sure.
learning about you're learning moves, how to defend yourself, how to use your body as a weapon,
Yeah.
essentially. And
Yeah.
it's basically preparing you for that level of physicality that you're dealing with. When you're
That's weirdly why I think a lot of like wrestlers end up like after they run their course or they get canned or whatever the heck, whatever, when they're not wrestling or not in the main companies anymore. A lot of them will be bouncers or bodyguards or stuff like that because you don't have to be the greatest fighter as a wrestler, but in a real fight, like just kind of the guy that's got the more dog in the fight, and wrestlers are used to getting hit. So most people are scared to get hit, as they should be. Like it just should be. It's instinctually as a mammal, like you don't want to get hit. It's
Mhm.
fight or flight, and most mammals will choose to run versus stick around and find out. So just the art of being comfortable with getting hit or being comfortable with pain that's a whole country to be conquered on its own. So if you can figure out that puts you in good standing with a knowing how to perform legitimately to make it look authentic, and then two carrying it over, like whether you come from a shoot background or you wind up in a shoot back in a shoot scenario, whether again whether it's like guys like Kurt Angle that were in the Olympics or Brock Lesnar or different guys that are coming up bare knuckle this or boxing gloves champion, golden gloves that, and this that and the other, and now they have to sort of play fight that in a pro wrestling ring or after pro wrestling, then they do something else. Like they go into whatever, or maybe they from, even Brock Lesnar again, he went from collegiate wrestling to pro wrestling to the octagon and then back to pro wrestling. So, it's all cousin to one another. And if you can shoot, you can work. And if you can work, it doesn't necessarily mean you can shoot. But the more you know how to shoot, chances are the better your work will be.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Now, when you're learning how to wrestle, learning the holds, um, do you remember the kinds of drills that you would do and any pieces of advice that you got from your trainers that, still
Sure.
stick with you today?
Sure. I've told this story a time or 10. Um, my first day pro wrestling training with Ron Hutchinson, he said, like, so it's not like it is today where you go to a wrestling gym and you pay your monthly dues and then, you're trusting your coaches to pay to teach you stuff on the monthly, and you're trusting the students to pay on the monthly. So back in the day, like you kind of put all your money down, and then those coaches tried to break you because they just wanted to see, are you tough enough to be in their industry? And no refunds, not Kmart. So if you quit, you're out, that 2, 3, 4 grand, whatever it is that you put down. And so I remember Hutchinson saying, all right, now that he had our money, he said, nobody gets a water break until somebody pukes, and class is not over until somebody quits and says, I'm never coming back. So about, I want to say, about 3.5 hours later, somebody yacked all over themselves, and we got a little 5-minute water break. And about 4 hours and maybe close to 45 minutes into the class, somebody said, yep, screw this. I'm done. I'm never coming back. That was my very first day. Like my first day of just my regular first day of pro wrestling training was harder than like my first black belt degree uh, uh, grading. And I freaking broke bricks with my hands and sparred 2 dudes at the same time, full contact. And that was easier than Rod Hutchinson's first day in class.
Hmm.
I know he loves when I tell that story because he wants everything
It's
to sound scary and legit, because it is. Like if you come up hard, you sort of tend to end up being nicer, but if you come up soft, then you might tend to be a kind of like a jerk, whatever. But like, yeah, we came up pretty darn hard for sure.
it sounds very intense,
Yeah, you
So
can't do that to your body without love of the game. Like you just can't.
no, no, you're coming from martial arts to wrestling, similar backgrounds, but it's a different environment. It's one you have to really get used to over time.
And I'm an old school martial arts guy. Like I like the octagon stuff. I like the UFC stuff or whatever. I don't follow the exact fighters, but I can watch their footwork and watch their hips and watch their facial expressions just from my time as a martial artist, comboed with my like time as a pro wrestler, as a worker, as we would say, just watching like the little nuances and the sort of the tells and seeing, you know, who's really got the more dog in the fight and that kind of stuff. And you learn to read all that stuff, and just the more you know about it, I think the more authentic your performance is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, you have to figure out, your character, what kind of things that, qualities that make the wrestler, unique and important
Sure,
and taking you turned all the way up is a big one because
sure.
you want to get the crowd behind you. You want to figure out what's gonna, get you over, in
And it's
front
the
of the
funny thing. It's
audience.
like I travel to enough shows where I see some young guy and went to the mall, got his face painted. Now he's a demon or a Martian or whatever the heck he is, whatever. And I don't roll like that. Like I'm very authentic in my craft, art, sport, business, whatever you want to call it. Like I'm legitimately was a tournament fighter. I was legitimately a circus strongman, all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So dressing up in all that circus stuff, I giggle when guys are like, "Oh, I like your gimmick, or I like your character," and I kind of just giggle. I'm like, "What character? Like, what's the gimmick? Bruce Wayne or Batman? Which is the costume? So like, yeah, I'm all dolled up and whatever. I powdered my nose with clown paint, and I got my bunny slippers on, and I'm ready to go. But it's me, no matter like whether it's me in a pair of jeans or me in bunny slippers and clown paint. It's me. So it's not like just a made up character. It's just me with the, like you said, with the volume cranked.
Hmm. You're working across Canada, all across Canada. You've worked for TNA and WWE. Let's talk. Let's kind of start with TNA for a minute. Tell me about how you got signed and any moments from your time there that you want to share that were memorable.
Um, so Scott Demore was kind of a friend of a friend. He'd come up with Edge and Christian, and as I was starting, they asked him to take a look at me and help me out, and so I wrestled Scott in Detroit, and I absolutely sucked. I was brand new, and I was just green, and I wasn't thinking about anything shoot that I knew. I was just thinking about kind of how to play wrestler and be all booga 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 and scary and silly and whatever. I was much more enamored with the cartoon side of it than the shoot side of it. And I really learned a lot from Scott. I started working for Scott, and he became a booker for TNA, and he brought me down there, and that's where I got my first kind of you know taste of like being on like television wrestling, and I was really proud to do it, and still good friends with a lot of those guys today. I love Scott. He's definitely a brother of mine, and but like Wolfie D, aka Slash, Jim Mitchell, uh, Shane Douglas taught me a lot. Raven taught me a lot. Jeff Jarrett taught me a lot. Road Dog taught me a lot. There's a lot of really good guys at TNA that I learned from. Kid Cash taught me a lot. A lot of really, really, really talented dudes. I think I met Roddy Piper there for the first time, and rest his soul. Like I've known him for years, and every time I saw him, he was always kind and sweet, and always gave you good information. Good intel. I remember one of my highlights of my career had nothing to do with me being in a ring. I was literally in a like one of those like what do you call it, like those like skyboxes or whatever at WrestleMania in San
Hmm.
Francisco when my mentor Jake the Snake was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I was sitting in a skybox. For some reason, they had put me and my wife and like Rhino and Roddy Piper and Roddy Piper's family. And I remember Roddy had some really kind words for me, and he said it right in front of my wife, which I'll never forget. And that was just amazing. So it was just like, you know, it would be super cool just to hear that stuff in the shadows of in the hallway of a locker room or something like that. But to have somebody that you really look up to say something cool to you and cool about you, especially in front of your favorite person on earth, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And you had a run in WWE as well. And I think this is really fascinating because here's a gimmick, a character that uh, was really unique. Kizarny. The makeup, the costume. I was watching some of those vignettes earlier. Really well done, put together. Who came up with the idea for that gimmick?
So visually, that was all me. Like I literally just walked around like that. Like that's what I look like in or out of character. Like that was me. Like I was. That's how you'd see me in the wrestling ring. That's how you'd see me in the gym. That's how you see me in the Waffle House. I see it in the grocery store. That's what I look like. Um, I was wrestling as Sinn Bodhi at the time. Vince McMahon's idea was uh, he asked me like what I did, what I liked, and all that kind of stuff. And instead of saying freak show or sideshow, what I would usually say, I just knew wrestling started in the carnival, and I knew he liked that stuff, so I just used that verbiage, and I said, carnival wrestler and carnival strongman, all that stuff. So he was like, "Oh, really? That's interesting." We started talking, and the next day, so this was like at an Unforgiven somewhere. I can't even tell you what city it was in. Everything's a blur. Um, sorry, my eyes are dry. I was outside feeding my goats, and it's like kind of a dust storm out here in Death Valley, and I was getting all the
Oh
dust in
wow.
my eyes. So, yeah. But anyway,
Okay.
so Vince comes up to me. He goes, "Yeah, I really like the carnival idea." He goes, "I want you to be Kizarny. It's Carney for Carney. You get it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." So he came up with a name, and he asked me if I could speak Carney, and I said, "Yes, is I Kizan." And he said, "All right, good. I want you to speak Carney." So I was fine with it. I was still like, I was kind of like, I wasn't sure if this was a good idea or not, but I was just happy that he was thinking of me at all. I'm like, sure, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Happy to be here. And the only part that it really like I didn't like, but again, I never even thought to say that I didn't like something or even like as respectfully as I could. I just was just like, again, I was taught by Hutchinson, be a good soldier, do what you're told, just do it as best you can. Um, so they flew me to like a carnival, like a fair, where I had met with Ward Hall and Chris Christ, who run the World of Wonders, and I'm still friends with Chris to this day. Ward Hall, rest in peace. Um, but Vince's direction was just film whatever you do, just film all sorts of crazy stuff. We'll get it, we'll sort it out in production and in post. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I just did a bunch of my stuff there, and the thing that I just didn't like was, so Vince was dead set on me being a good guy. So I'm like, okay, all right. At that stage of the game, like now I'm a good guy. Weirdly, as creepy and as out of the box as I am now, I'm 9 out of 10 times I'm a good guy on shows. But then 9 out of 10 times I was a bad guy. So I was like, yes, sir, I'll be a good guy. Okay, that's what you want. He's the guy signing the checks. All right, yes, sir. As I'm saying my promo stuff, and Vince wanted me to talk in that Carney, gibberish and all that. I'm like, okay. But the director kept on saying, you're too scary. Like, can you heighten your kind of your tone, your octaves or whatever? Don't be so raspy or don't be so like, deep, whatever. I go, okay. So I try and do this higher and higher and higher. He's like, no, higher. You still sound scary. Yeah, more. You still sound scary. So next thing you know, I sound like, I swear that I sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. So now I'm like, hi, I'm Kizarny. So when I hear my voice, it just makes me like, just like, I just sound like a dork as far as I'm concerned. There's like nothing cool or good guy or bad guy or anything about it. I sound like this dork. Like I look weird enough and look whatever, but just I sound odd. And then so on top of that, then after Vince looks through all the footage, he's like, "This is crazy. I can't show anything. You're going to scare the crap out of the kids." Like I'm like, "Well, you asked me to do what I do, so I did what I do." And so they ended up using a lot of like the B-roll from some of like the sort of less scary, less intense, not intense, but like less like creepy or scary, whatever you want to say. Like just some of the more the performers that were more like maybe the kids would enjoy kind of a thing. Cause this where we're entering into a very uber PG time in
Yeah.
WWE. I
Hmm.
think my time, like my physical timeline there was not in my favor because like, the Attitude Era could have got away with a lot. Now I could even get away with a lot. But then it was just like you couldn't do just about anything. It was like super duper PG, almost G. Like it was almost like how it was, like kind of right before the Attitude Era when it was just a lot of like really silly, like shticky gimmicks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it was just kind of a slippery slope for me. Um, and I'm not complaining. It was what it was. And I'm a big boy. I'll make my bed and sleep in it. But I tried to have fun with it. I tried to do everything that I was supposed to do. And there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you wrestled MVP during that run.
I am technically undefeated on SmackDown. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a pretty good accolade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what were there plans to utilize you more on television? What was the direction of the character? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think Vince was really happy with me. I was his new shiny toy for a while, and then, kind of like a weird, kind of like dating somebody and it doesn't work out, and you just don't know why, and you never ever get any closure. Like to this day, I have no idea why. They just got a phone call one day saying, "Yep, see ya." Like that was it. Like I just had John Laurinaitis, just call me out of the blue and just was just like, "Got nothing for you, kid. Sorry, see you later." Click, and that was it. Like I had no explanation to this day. And then weirdly, like I've been back there plenty of times, like at PC, like coaching, like they've hired me to like guest coach a bunch down there. And so me and a couple of the coaches would joke, like some of the guys that had never set foot in a WWE ring on TV are coaching their guys, and we would kind of joke like they'll hire us to teach their guys, but they wouldn't put us back in a ring. Like, what was that all about? It's just all right, okay. Who am I to figure out the decisions of the higher ups? Whatever. I'm a ground soldier. Like I'm a hands-on in the field guy. I'm not an office guy. So whatever office decisions are made beats me. I don't know. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, definitely seems like the character had a lot of, growth and legs and
I think it was clipped so short, and for whatever reason, who knows? I've heard all sorts of silly reasons, but I have nothing decisive about it. But like, so when I was a kid, if somebody was introduced as a good guy, you cheered them. If they were introduced as a bad guy, you booed them. It was kind of cut and dry. It was like the Super Friends cartoon, like a bunch of good guys out there to do good, and a bunch of villains out there to do bad. That was it. But nowadays it's so much more shades of gray and so much more complex. Like, to watch that old Super Friends cartoon, it's so campy and so simplistic, but you can still watch those same superheroes in the Marvel movies and the DC movies, and the stories are so more, interesting or complex because those same people watching the Super Friends have grown up into from kids to adults. So we're just
It
same
grows with
character.
you.
But yeah, those characters totally, that Americana has grown with us,
Hmm.
And so I think when I came out, like when I had that match with MVP, I remember looking at Dr. Tom and Gorilla, and Dr. Tom is just as smart as you could possibly get. And I looked at him and he's just like, and I was like, uh-oh, if the good doctor doesn't know what's going on, then I think I'm up, Shiznit Creek without a paddle. And so Vince wanted me to be a good guy, which is fine. It's his company, his show, his checkbook, no problem. Yes, sir. But I think to force somebody to like or to cheer for you or boo you, whatever, to force a situation, it's contrived and it's hard to digest, like. But if they just let you, like I thought, like I looked like a villain, I moved like a villain, I thought like a villain. Let me be a fun villain, and if you like to hate me within moments, within a couple of weeks, a week even, I could have been a babyface. Like let them enjoy not liking me first, then let them go, oh, he's fun to watch, or he's this, or he's colorful, or he's whatever, he's funny, or he's whatever. I think I kind of like him. It's like Roddy Piper was like the best bad guy in '85, best good guy in '86. He was just so fun to hate that you just really loved him. So
Yeah.
I'm not comparing myself to, I'm too humble to, or, to compare myself to Roddy Piper, but you get the idea of like,
Hmm.
let me go out, let me earn my keep as a bad guy, let me get my booze, and let me get another good guy his sympathy, and let me engage the audience, and sink their teeth into me, and then off we go, and then we'll
Yeah.
just organically flip into a baby face. You know,
Yeah, I mean, look at how Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were, just this anti-hero,
sure.
and The Rock, turned around, he was Rocky Maivia, this happy, you know, goody two
Right.
shoes, you
And
know,
they weren't buying it. They weren't buying it at all.
no,
No.
no, and look where they became. Look at what they became. They became
If
legends.
if I had a nickel for every show I've been to, big and small, just all over Hell's Half Acre, I've had so many people go, man, I wish you were doing now, uh, you know, when you were in that Kizarny spot. I wish you were doing that then. I'm like, well, I don't have a time machine, so there you go.
Well, let's talk about your current iteration of your persona now. What made you decide to come up with your character today?
Uh, so a lot of people will say Captain Spaulding, or when I had the long hair and the top hat, they'd say Rob Zombie, but I get a lot of like Joker and Spaulding. And the influence is for sure there, no doubt. But weirdly, I more think of Ultron. I think of, this traveling satellite that flies around the galaxy, just accruing new knowledge and new ways to, unleash, hell on the good guys or on his opponents or whatever. So like I am a collector of, you know, violent techniques or whatever you want to say, a collector of war and how to be a student of war. And again, my shoot background is, various forms of martial arts, and then being a legitimate circus strongman, sideshow freak, geek magician, all that kind of stuff. And then uh, you you three-way that with being an actual pro wrestler. And then I'm not a small dude. Like I mean, I'm just a hair under 6'2". I'm about 240 pounds, so I'm a big enough dude, and I can move pretty darn quick, and I can endure pretty much. And my cardio's through the roof, and I'm not a buffoon. I'm not some goofy clown. Like I am cerebral. And so I always have these guys like, oh, he's not crazy. He's awesome at mind games. Oh, he's gonna manipulate you and he's gonna whatever. Like, yeah, that's exactly right. I'm not a, when you got a face for radio like this, you better have a good personality and you better be smart in the ring. Like if I'm gonna compete with these guys half my age, and all these guys that have 20 abs and can jump 10 feet high, like, Spider-Man can jump, Hawkeye can jump, Black Panther can jump, Captain America can jump, but Ultron or Thanos, man, they can really put it down too, in a different way. So that's kind of what I like to think I bring to the table.
Yeah.
You know,
It's all about taking your influences and
sure,
inspirations and putting
sure,
into one. I love that kind of concept.
sure.
So, yeah, I mean, you've had, an amazing career.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Over the years, who have been some of your favorite opponents that you've gotten to work against?
Well, I think it would be an obvious way to say, my mentor, Jake the Snake, like tagging with him and wrestling him, was every time I did it, he's one of my best pals. He officiated my wedding, like he's one of my very best friends on this planet. And it's still never not weird. Just to like, look, you know what? That's Jake the Snake. Like when I was a kid, uh, what's up, Rambo? What's going on, man? My little blind poodle's like growling for something.
Oh,
He's ghosts or what? I don't know what he sees, but maybe he just heard the name Jake. He's like, who do you ever beat? I'll get him. And yeah, just when I was a kid, like he really uh, captured my imagination. I remember told this story many times too. Like I remember sitting on the couch late at night trying to keep our eyes open, me and Edge and Christian, the little kids, trying to keep our eyes open to watch Saturday night's main event. And we see Ricky Steamboat come out and like, yay, we're all happy, yay, Ricky Steamboat. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jake, boom, DDT on the concrete. And I remember Edge and Christian were all upset. And I was just like, I think I'm going to cheer for the guy that just gave the DDT, not for the guy that took the DDT. So I was like hooked right then and there. And fast forward years later, I wrestled him in England, I wrestled him in Canada, and we buddied up, and we started riding together, and just he taught me so much. And so I'll definitely say like he's at the top of that list. Gangrel is one of my favorite Earthlings, favorite opponents, favorite tag partners. Like I love Gangrel. How can you not have fun with a 280-pound vampire? Like golly, that is a human pit bull.
not to mention,
Fun to wrestle.
not to mention just an incredible entrance as
Oh,
well.
that's I think to me, maybe I'm biased, but I think that's the best entrance in the galaxy. That music and that Ring of Fire and that spitting blood out of the chalice and all that stuff and all of it like that. The Gangrel and the Brood entrance to me is my favorite entrance of all time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Those both of them are great ones.
I booked like I've wrestled Gangrel on shows where whatever promoter was booking us to tag or booking us to wrestle each other. Different we did that all over the world, all over North America. Um, but when I ran Freak Show Wrestling in Las Vegas and in Los Angeles, that was the avant-garde show where we'd really think out of the box, and so everybody was so used to seeing Gangrel being serious and scary or whatever. So I would put him in the most silliest, most ridiculous situations, kind of like Kindergarten Cop. Like
Hmm.
I think Kindergarten Cop would have sucked if you had a comedian in the main role, but it was so funny because at that stage of the game, you just never saw Arnold do anything funny. Like he was just like blowing things up and
It was the
dropping cheesy
Terminator.
one. That's it. He was just Terminator and Conan, and that's it. So for him to be getting stressed out with a bunch of little kids, it's not a tumor, like it was genius. But if you put a comedian in there, like if Jim Carrey was in that, it would have just sucked. And I love Jim Carrey, but it just you didn't need a comedian. You needed a serious guy for it to be funny.
Hmm.
So when Gangrel is like that, he's just this big, scary, serious dude. So you shove him into these ridiculous situations. To me, it was just gold. One of many times putting Gangrel in silly situations. So I had him in a barefoot landmine field of mousetraps match with the Zach Galifianakis Hangover impersonator, and how that Hangover character had the baby, and
Hmm.
like so Gangrel was catching the dive off of the baby, like he's throwing the baby over the top ropes, and Gangrel's bumping for this little baby who I think ended up getting turned into a vampire because it got bit by Shelly Martinez from ECW and all this stuff. And so I just all sorts of stuff. I wrestled Gangrel one time. This is possibly my favorite match of all time. I think we did like what we called it a Michael Jackson knife fight. So like when they taped their hands and had the switchblades and like beat it in the
Hmm.
Beat It video.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we did that, but we had machetes, like real machetes, and we taped our hand together. And I had a guest manager, Clownvis, who is this awesome, funny singer, and he's exactly what he sounds like. He's half clown, half Elvis. He's a really great singer. he was on like America's Got Talent years ago, and
Mm.
he pissed off Sharon Osbourne because he realized they were kind of throwing him under the bus to be a foil or a villain, and he was smart enough to not have it. So he really like mouthed off to them, and boy, oh boy, did he get Sharon Osbourne pissed off. It was so funny. And so anyway, so we did that, and so we had Beat It playing over the loudspeakers, and it was pretty awesome. And when we clanged machetes, like you could see the sparks off of the machetes, like it was not some sports entertainment rubber machetes, like it was like legit machetes. So I think that was possibly my favorite match of all time.
That's, it's cool, when we talk about, imagination and creativity, the way, you're coming up with all these different, match types and stipulations. I mean, that's so cool, really is. I mean, you really don't see anything like it, in any other form except for pro wrestling. And I think that's so
Sure.
fascinating, to be able to do that,
One
that
one of my one of my
unpredictability.
one of my good friends, rest his soul, is amazing. Jonathan. He's like a comedy magician. And we always used to always go to his house and play water volleyball on the days that we weren't performing somewhere. And he was always so flattering, saying, "Man, you come up with the craziest, awesomest ideas." Like he goes, "If you can amuse me, you're damn near be able to amuse anybody," because he's just such a harder sell than the average bear, you know. And
Hmm.
he was always saying stuff like, "Man, you're not just out of the box, but you're out of the room, out of the house, across the hall, across the street from where they keep the box." So I appreciated that. His favorite thing that I booked for Freak Show Wrestling was me versus me in an Inner Demons match, and with Kevin Sullivan as the guest referee. So it was like the evilest guy in wrestling, guest refing, the weirdest guy in wrestling versus the weirdest guy in wrestling. And it was a lot of fun. And I had one of Rikishi's students that looked like he was about my size and everything. We dolled him up to look just like me, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember Jonathan being so intrigued by it. He's like, "Dude, I can't stop watching this over and over." He was just like, "That's awesome." And for him, I mean, he's such a cerebral, like he's like the comedy version of Jake the Snake. Like if you took like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, like they're both awesome, but one is the funny one is the serious one. So Jake Roberts and Amazing Jonathan are very parallel. Like one is just the funny version of the other and the serious version of the other.
If you had to pick someone, who would you pick as like your dream opponent?
It's a good question. For currently or just forever, like
In
throughout.
general, in general.
Uh, Maybe out of the guys that well, so seeing that I have wrestled Jake and I've wrestled a lot of guys from the '80s, like I've wrestled the Road Warriors. I would say that if I hadn't wrestled Road Warriors, I'd say Road Warriors. But I think maybe Macho Man. I never got to.
Hmm.
Out of all the guys that I've wrestled with from the '80s, or knew, or traveled with, or friends with, or some such, Macho Man was just one of the only guys I never ever met. Not once. Wasn't in a locker room with him. Never wrestled him. Didn't ride with him. Nothing. Didn't do a signing with him. I would have loved to wrestle him. I think that would have been super fun. I did meet Mr. Perfect. Was like the first wrestler I met when I was a kid. He was like larger than life. He was like my dad was a big guy, and this guy just made my dad look like a midget, and he was just awesome. So one of those two, Mr. Perfect or Macho Man, I would think.
Let's switch gears and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of wrestling. You'd mentioned earlier you've got, a farm and have animals, growing up
Yeah,
around animals. I
yeah,
want to talk about some of the stuff you do as far as charity work and
sure,
anything that you've done outside of the business to help out in your community.
sure. So last year, me and my wife moved from Las Vegas to this little town on the edge of Death Valley. Yeah, going on about 2 years ago. And so last Christmas we called it the Winter Wonder Slam, and we did a free charity show for underprivileged kids, and we got about 500 kids there. And like I remember like the sheriffs and the commissioners and other kind of town elders and the reporters and all these different things were like, "Man, we haven't seen 500 kids in one place behaving, let alone being happy and smiling and cheering in like 30 years. Wrestling or anything like that hasn't been in this town in about 30 years." So I was super happy that we could, do something nice for the community.
Well, as far as like, helping out and doing something for someone or if you're passionate about animal rescue, talk to me about anything that you're involved with that might be inspiring to someone that might be interested in helping out.
So my wife and I, we just love animals and we just try to rescue every critter that we can afford to rescue and that we have space to rescue. And I've got a little ranch house on an acre out here in the high desert. So it's not like a as dusty and hot as Las Vegas is. It's got more greenery and stuff like that. So we've got an acre. So we've got lots of chickens. We just rescued some turkeys from the Thanksgiving you know from the Thanksgiving you know
Hmm.
and we've got some ducks. We've got a bunch of goats. We've got a giant tortoise about the size of a lawnmower walking around my backyard. We got a little Russian tortoise that's about the size of a football. We got a big old snake. She was actually a circus rescue, and she's been to the ring with Jake the Snake a time or two. Um, and also dogs, cats, and I have a big, huge, well, not big, huge, a little. By little, I'd say he's about 450 pounds. We've got a mini Texas Longhorn steer walking around my
Mm,
backyard. So
that's
that's
nice.
interesting. And so we've got all sorts of critters. So I think just about every bit of profit I make on a wrestling show or doing a wrestling seminar or selling those wrestling figurines or whatever pretty much goes to uh, feeding those critters. So like I pay my bills and I feed those critters. Like I'm literally wearing my paint covered t-shirt sent to me by my buddy, friend of mine, Donnie Cotterman, for like we designed the LJN toys as like a hobby, and so that's it. I'm a collector of t-shirts as a pro wrestler because I'm a giant child. So I've got all the different, stuff. But like I don't spend anything on myself as far as it all goes to feeding these critters. So we're like little Champy here who's sleeping in my lap right now. Um, so we rescued him from this not a very I mean it's not no fault of like the place, it's just a budgeting thing. Like but we from this kill shelter in San Bernardino, which could use, some donations. I think every pet place, every like shelter could use some donations. But I went to go rescue another little blind poodle girl. We have this little dude Rambo here who's sitting behind me in his little cabana. And and so I was going to drive about 4 hours from the back of Death Valley to go into San Bernardino. And by the time I got there, like they were kind of behind and they weren't overly their website wasn't updated and they weren't inundated with any new stuff. And I guess that little blind poodle girl had gotten adopted. So that's awesome. So great. I thought I'm not driving 4 hours and not jailbreaking one of these little critters. So I just asked like who's the critter that's most in need that nobody wants, maybe been here longest or whatever. And they pointed me to Champy, and he was like emaciated, like he was just skin and bone. He was scared. He wouldn't eat, and he just kind of looked at each other, and he was just like, "Are you my dude?" I looked at him. I'm like, "Are you my dude?" And the little girl that was working at the place she's like, "He hasn't responded to anybody like that." So I'm like, "All right, well, let's get out of here, man." And so me and him in the truck and a Slim Jim later, and we were best pals. And so that was how that goes. He hasn't left my side ever since.
How long have you had your dogs?
I've had all these different critters for different lengths of time. Um, Dog we got from excuse me, Arizona. I guess on the edge of Arizona. Got him, rescued him as a puppy, and his name is Ox, and he's a pit mastiff, and he's just the sweetest boy ever. We've had him for about 7 years. We rescued this little pit Wawa, if you could figure out what that is. It's like this looks like a little jacked little dachshund. Uh, if the Road Warriors, if you mixed the Road Warriors and a dachshund, that would be like what this little sweet
Okay.
little girl is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I guess at like 3 weeks old, so my wife's stepdaughter is a vet tech in Vegas. And I guess at 3 weeks old, some asshole brings this little dog in a coma to the thing, say, oh, she won't wake up. And my daughter-in-law said, what happened? Well, she was barking so loud and I got mad and I threw it against the wall and it won't wake up. And so she kind of chased the guy off and said, look, don't ever come back or we'll call the police. So she raised this little dog out of a coma. So after about 6 or so weeks, she was in a coma for a while. And after about 6 weeks and some TLC from my daughter-in-law, she was kind of up and moving. And so when we saw her, we took her right in and she's super sweet and super smart. I think with the head trauma, yeah, she's super sweet until she's not. So the funny thing about her is like, so I think with that head trauma, she kind of goes from zero to hero really quickly. So we can't really keep her around the other dogs. Like she's little, but she's big enough where she could do some damage on a small dog.
Hmm.
Where my big ox, he just thinks she's funny and he's whatever. Like he's so big, he's just silly, you know. It's kind of like me and my wife. Like she can bark all day long, but she's just a 5 foot little midget. So I'm not worried about it. But with the little Pitwawa, she's like, I don't know, her medulla oblongata is no bueno. So she just sees something weird and she's also saying, "What's going on?" And she'll kind of lose her stuff for a little bit, and then she's right back sweet again. So her she goes up and down very quickly. So you have to kind of watch it with that, and that just comes with the course of her surviving such a brutal thing of trauma, which is awful. I can't.
Yeah, it's never good to have a pet or anybody, that's abused or assaulted or any kind of violent, incidents.
The meaning of life is finding peace in the chaos. And I just thought, like, when these little critters are looking at me, even if they're annoying or even if they peed on the floor, they did something, like they're just so innocent and sweet. Like I can't help but just go, okay, I'm lucky to have these critters. If I won the lottery, I'd get an island and I would rescue a shit ton more. That's how that would go.
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy, being it with, animal rescue or putting on these benefit shows?
It's addicting. To be honest and to be selfish, it's addicting. To be nice to a creature that is more innocent than you, that's I can't describe it. I'm kind of a straight edge guy, but if I was to be a drug guy or a booze guy or something, I'd have to think it was, or a smoker or something. I have to think it's addicting. Like to be kind to a kid or an animal, like just the rewarding side of that is so addictive. Yeah. Like just seeing little kids happy, seeing kids booing and cheering, watching the good guys and the bad guys, and watching the good guys kick the crap out of the bad guys and showing them this is what happens to the bad guys, or as far as the critters, like just seeing the innocent little eyes going, I trust you, man. I trust you to feed me and keep me warm and, be sweet to me. It's just like, I can't describe it. It's just amazing. It's like, it would make me, it's like, it just is like an overwhelming, like you get that tingling in your skin, like it's just the sweetest thing. Like I've got this silly old cow sitting in the back. He's a young guy. He's like 2 years old. And he'll kind of follow me as I'm walking around, like from my chicken runs to my turkey runs to my goat paddock or whatever. He's kind of watching me, and I'm always kind of singing to him as I'm walking by. And he'll like literally pace back and forth as I'm going back and forth, getting water or feed or whatever I'm doing. And he's just the silliest, and he kind of flumps around like he has the zoomies. He's just like a giant dog, like he's like three Great Danes strapped together. And he'll get excited and play, and he'll come up on his hind legs and kind of flomp, and he's shaking his head around. And my wife got him this giant. Like a beach ball or something, like some heavy tethered ball that he can't really puncture with his horns or whatever. He's flomping around playing with it like a giant dog. It's the silliest. Like it's just the coolest. I can't explain it. It's the closest thing to peace ever.
Yeah.
Again, I selfishly will just say it's addictingly selfish to be nice. Like it's just, yeah, it's like a high.
It's the best feeling in the world, there's nothing like it whatsoever, to always, be there for someone or be there for, animals that are in need or people that are in need, we all need to
Sure.
help each other and be around each
Sure.
other, it's.
Sure. And I think that's what channels kind of like helps me kind of stay sane while floating around on this spinning rock through hurling space. It just lets me just kind of go, okay, in some ways I could be, a savage and a caveman. And in some ways I can be like a sweet teddy bear dad or, a guy that's helping, me and my wife running this funny farm or whatever. But like, out of all the stuff that goes through my brain, I think that's why me and Jake the Snake get along so well, because we both have brains that just don't shut off. Like our thoughts are, I'm like a hornet's nest all the time. Yeah. So to find something that kind of brings you peace is like so, like again, addicting. But yeah, just like I'll go out, like after I do this interview, I'll go out and give my host like their little midnight snack. I'm not sure what time it is there for you, but It's actually still pretty early. I won't go for a little while. Um, but I'll go check on everybody, and it's going to be like it'll be like 30 degrees outside, and I'm going to be bundled. I'm going to be bundled up, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to pet ducks and chickens and goats while like chickens are asleep. Like once the sun sets, chickens are like zombies. They're out. You can have a rock concert around chickens; they're not going to budge. But the ducks are quacking around, moving around. They're even as cold as it is, they're still swimming around in their little duck ponds, doing all that stuff. The turkeys are all perched. They're just kind of like big chickens. They're in their perches. But I'll go and play with the little ducks, and I'll go pet the steer, and I'll go play with the goats. And we have this one little goat. He was the first one born on our property. He was born the morning after Terry Funk passed away, so we named him Terry Funk Wigglebeans. We kind of thought that one goat leaves, then one goat arrives. So he looks like Terry, sells like Terry, drop kicks like Terry. So we figured the name is perfect.
That's
So
nice.
I'll go, yeah, for sure. And he's just the funniest. So I'll go out there and he'll come running over the fence and he always like wants me to pet him and stuff. And you got to watch over those horns sometimes because he gets excited. Like he's just playing, like he's just being sweet, but he works snug. So to
Yeah.
put it in wrestling terms. So you got to watch over those horns. But yeah, he's a super little sweetheart and he's fun. He's funny. They're all little comedians, I swear. Like every one of those chickens, ducks, turkeys, goats, cow, all of them, all of the tortoises. Like my big giant tortoise, total comedian. Like he's like a dog. Like I'll call him and he'll, hey Patrick, and he'll come over and he'll come running over. He's like, "What's up, man? You got some tomatoes for me? You got the watermelon? What do you got for me, man?" He's ridiculous. And like all the cats look at him like he's some kind of weird dog, and all the dogs look at him like he's some kind of weird cat. Like they're like, "What kind of screwed up dog is that?" But it just is never a dull minute here, and they're always up to no good. They're always doing something. They're always like having their barnyard adventures and doing weird stuff and ridiculous.
Well, it seems like you've got a community that, loves you and cares about you, and you're there supporting them, and it's very, very nice to see that.
It was weird. Thank you. It was so weird last
Welcome.
year. So I didn't plan on doing a promo or anything in the match, but I just kind of, as the mood struck, I grabbed the microphone and I just kind of told all the kids, like, 'cause we had just sort of just moved there like that year. So people had seen me around a little bit, like not in a clown paint or anything, but just, you know, I think with all the tattoos and all the shenanigans, I think I stand out like a sore thumb on the best of days. But so I just kind of I just thought to say it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just like grabbed the mic and I just said to all the kids and all the parents and everybody out there, like, I might be a rule breaker in the ring, but you know, me and my wife just moved. We moved here, and this is our new home. And whether I break the rules inside of the ring, the devil protects his house. And so I said, if you see me in the gas station, in the grocery store, and wherever, like I am a safe person in this community that you can, trust. And I can't tell you how many kids, moms, grown ass adults, just dudes are like, wrestling guy, man, we saw you at the thing, wrestling guy, man, we really liked that you said that to the kids. And I remember like at that show there was there was bikers there was police officers, there was everything there, and they were all like, dude, that was awesome, that was so cool for the kids. They were all like there was like a biker chapter that's there for like kids youth, like they do a lot of kids stuff, like night good guy bikers, and they were like, man, that was so cool. And they came there and they were giving out candy and toys and doing all the stuff. They had like a booth there to do all that and like volunteering to make sure all the kids had stuff. And it was just a really neat thing to see the community come together. And I think I told you at the beginning of this interview, like some of the towns, sort of like the politicians and stuff were there. And they're like, we haven't seen that many kids in one place at one time and having a good time. So that was awesome. So I was super proud of that.
Yeah,
Like, I think I'll kind of close with like, you know, I've never been the WWE champion or TNA champion or AEW champion. I've had title belts here and there, like regional stuff, but my truest championship moments are, you know, making kids happy, smiles on faces, rescuing critters, and I will say thirdly, having legends, you know, you know, throw me a compliment or something that I'd never expected. I would thoroughly appreciate it. I suck at taking compliments. Like I'm so awkward to take a compliment. I really appreciate it, but somebody would say something nice, and I'm like, thanks, thanks. I'm so awkward about it, But like having like guys like Jake the Snake or Rest His Soul, Roddy Piper, or Amazing Jonathan, say something kind and everything. Those are the kind of things that I can hang a mental championship belt on and stuff. And like, I'm gonna go outside in a few minutes and I'm gonna get licked by a midget steer, and it's gonna be like that's my championship belt, knowing like he's running over to me, he feels safe around me. I'm gonna give him a treat, and he's gonna give my arm or my face a giant tongue bath, in gratitude for the me petting him and singing to him and playing with him and stuff. And it's just the coolest. The same with the ducks and the goats and the chickens and the turkeys and the dogs and the cats.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh man, that's so cool though that you're getting to be around, the animals and, being able to have that community together and uniting people. I mean, that's what this is all about at the end of the day is just bringing people together, from all
for
walks of
sure.
life and animals from all walks of life together and living in peace and harmony is something that we all strive for and continue to strive for. So
Sure.
kudos to you for being able to do that and be someone that is working towards that.
Well, you know what? I think like, everything these days is so divisive, and everybody, from every angle is coming at it with, everybody's so up in arms about stuff. I think if you just it's getting to FU is the quickest place, that's the quickest thing you can get to. If you take time and communicate with each other, like my dad used to say, like any idiot can destroy. It takes kindness and patience and creativity to create. Like again, I was joking with this other dude on an airplane flying back from a wrestling show last week, and I'll tell you the same thing. Like, you and I, we could take hours and build a sandcastle together, but we could both kick it over in 2 seconds. You know, Uh, so like putting your mind and your creativity and your effort on how to make things better for people. Like I could be selfish, I could just do something for myself, and I don't want to do that. I'm not Mother Teresa by any means, but I just think as a red-blooded grown-ass man, it's my job to uh, protect and help innocent creatures, whether that's whether that's a duck, whether that's a goat, whether that's my daughter, whether that's a dog, whether it's my wife, whether it's just a stranger on the street, like like whatever. Just be kind. There you go. That's
Absolutely.
it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching
Thank
this
you.
on
Thank
YouTube.
you.
You're welcome. Where can people find more about you on social media? Anything that you want to plug? Feel free.
So my Facebook, my Twitter, and my Instagram are all Sinn Bodhi, SINNBODHI. Sin with two N's, Bodhi like the tree. Bodhi is actually short for Bodhisattva, which stands for without hate, greed, or delusion. It's like a
Mm.
Buddhist thing. I swiped it from the Patrick Swayze character from Point Break. Like that's what they called him, but they didn't. You never knew what that character's name was. His nickname was the Bodhisattva, Bodhi, and that's where I kind of uh, borrowed that from. But yeah, if you want to book me for a wrestling show, to do a wrestling seminar, to do an appearance, if you want to do any of my animal charity stuff, like my wife and I always, especially on my Facebook, I post more of that stuff. If you just scroll my page, you'll see we have like a little thing where you can there's like I don't know how to describe it. My wife's way better at all that online stuff, but like it's almost like a wish list where like you could go onto like an Amazon wish list where you can get like goat treats or cat treats
Hmm.
or cat litter or doggy diapers or just
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
stuff. And those little things definitely does put a dent in the budget of helping these critters on this funny farm and stuff.
Yeah.
Little Champy here, he's a pee pee monster, so he goes through all those little Chihuahua diapers like crazy
Yeah.
because he was trying to sign his autograph on everything possible. So just stuff like that just adds up. So like I wrestle so much and I make so many of those figurines and I do so many seminars because like these little guys, like feeding these guys and keeping them warm and safe and clean is not cheap.
Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
will shamelessly say, yeah, anybody that wants to help out, you know, can of cat food, a case of cat food, anything will, goat treats, chicken feed, anything. Like I've got the link on my Facebook page for the most part, but anybody wants to do something like that, or just to like, I've had a lot of guys where like I'll help guys on wrestling shows and they're like, oh, that was awesome. How can I, is there anything I can do? I'm like, just do something nice for the critters, or two, just just turn around, just do something nice for somebody else. Just help somebody, do pay it forward, just be an act of random act of kindness, whether it's towards another human or a critter or whatever, just something. That's it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thanks for the fun chat.
Absolutely. Take care.
I think you and I put Champy to sleep. We talked him to sleep.
Yeah.
So I would just, in closing, I will tell you and all of your listeners, thank you for putting up with me, and be safe, be smart, be kind.
All right. I love to hear that. Have a good one. Thanks again.
Take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.